Now, prophetically, and this I think was something interesting, and this is why I had to add 2 pages to the outline today after lunch. Sharon and I started talking and got into this discussion. Identifying Baal as Melqart adds significance to the book of Ezekiel. Now, Ezekiel was 300 years later. Tyre, during this period of time, had developed the greatest commercial empire of the ancient world. They founded colonies in Spain and North Africa, Carthage, of course, the most famous. They ventured out into the Atlantic Ocean. They reached West Africa. They reached Britain. There are some people who suggest they might have even reached North America, although that's not proven. We're familiar with Ezekiel 28. I talked about that last night. This was the lament over the king of Tyre, which is prophetic because it talks about the fall from Eden by the divine rebel, the Nakash. Eden, the garden of God, the anointed guardian cherub. But if you back up one chapter to Ezekiel 27, where Ezekiel is also writing about the king of Tyre. Ezekiel 27, beginning at verse 4, your borders are in the heart of the seas. Your builders made perfect your beauty. Similar language to Ezekiel 28. It also recalls heart of the seas, the well-watered garden, Eden, the same language. Of course, Tyre was located on the coast, and when they came under attack, they had like a fortress that was actually an island off the coast. Very difficult to take militarily, although Alexander the Great did it. It took him a year and a half. It really ticked him off. Sold them all into slavery for that. He was really angry. And interestingly, it was because he wanted to make a sacrifice to Melqart. And they said, no, you can't do it. It's almost time for him to wake up. You have to wait for him to wake up. You can't sacrifice now. He's not awake yet. Alexander took it as an insult. And so he built a siege ramp a mile out into the ocean, and 60,000 Tyrians went off to slavery. Anyway, Ezekiel 27, verse 5. They made all your planks, they're talking about his ships now, they made all your planks of fir trees from Senir. Senir is the Amorite word for Hermon, Mount Hermon. Ezekiel's not picking this location by chance. Mount Hermon, again, thick with theological significance. The holy mountain of El and the place where the watchers came down and began cavorting with human women. They took a cedar from Lebanon to make a mast for you. Lebanon, land of the Phoenicians, the Canaanites, the Baal worshippers. Verse 6, of oaks of Bashan, they made your oars. Bashan, in Canaanite language, Bathan, place of the serpent. It was the kingdom of Og, last of the Rephaim. To the Canaanites, essentially, Bashan was the gateway to the netherworld. Ezekiel is saying, Tyre, your ships are built with this stuff tied to these rebellious gods, and these gods who basically are essentially the dead. Ezekiel making it clear that material provided by places that were the domain of rebellious gods and the dead. And the crews of those ships were the descendants of the cursed Canaan, son of Ham, and his son Sidon. Sidon was the father of the Sidonians and the Tyrians. Verse 26 in Ezekiel 27, your rowers have brought you out into the high seas. The east wind has wrecked you in the heart of the seas. The east wind. Remember the direction to the entrance? Which compass direction was the entrance to Eden? Which compass direction the entrance to the temple in Jerusalem? It was east. The east wind has wrecked you in the heart of the seas. Your riches, your wares, your merchandise, your mariners and your pilots, your caulkers, your dealers in merchandise, all your men of war who are in you, with all your crew that is in your midst, sink into the heart of the seas on the day of your fall. At the sound of the cry of your pilots, the countryside shakes, and down from their ships come all who handle the oar. The mariners and all the pilots of the sea stand on the land and shout aloud over you and cry out bitterly. They cast dust on their heads and wallow in ashes. They make themselves bald for you. This is mourning. Wallow in ashes. Verse 32, in their wailing they raise a lamentation for you and lament over you. Who is like Tyre, the one destroyed in the midst of the seas? Now look at Revelation 18. And just see if you see any similarity here. Revelation 18, verse 1. After this I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was made bright with his glory. And he called out with a mighty voice, fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable beast. When you skip down, verse 17, in a single hour all this wealth has been laid waste, and all shipmasters and seafaring men, sailors, and all whose trade is on the sea stood far off and cried out as they saw the smoke of her burning, what city was like the great city? What city is like Tyre? You see, Babylon, if you know your geography, wasn't much of a seafaring nation. It's more than 100 miles away from the ocean. Tyre is on the ocean. Tyre was a great seafaring state, founded the greatest commercial empire of its day. But the kings of Babylon, the kings of Assyria, and the Canaanites, the Phoenicians of the coast, all traced their ancestry back to the Amorites, to a clan called the Datanu. Datanu, which is the word from which the Greeks get the word Titans, the Watchers. And again, we see that the iniquity of the Amorites that God told Abraham about. Your descendants will come back in the 4th generation to this land, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet fulfilled. The iniquity of the Amorites, the Canaanites, the inhabitants of Tyre, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, it's all the iniquity of Babylon. I believe, and I could be way wrong on this, so I wouldn't die on this theological hill, but I think this is really interesting, and I think there may be something here. I believe that Ezekiel is equating Tyre with prophetic Babylon.